Welcome to the SJ Childs Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Hello. Thank you so much for being here today. Today, I have a new guest, and I'm so excited to connect with him. He's coming from the future. Let's just be honest, right? He's already had his afternoon and his dinner, and this is exciting to be able to connect with him. We met through a parenting group on Facebook, and I'm excited to explore his style, his ideas, and really get to know him more. So, Jesse, thank you so much for being here today.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. And what an introduction. I am from the future. For those who are listening, I'm living in Spain. So from you,
I think
what
we're 7 or 8 hours. Yeah. Oh, we're 8 hours apart. It's 1 o'clock here.
Okay. Yeah. So here I am. It's 9 p.m. So thank you for having me. It's awesome.
Yeah. I'm really excited to talk to you today. The thing I love about meeting new people like this in this medium is that we have the chance to really uncover, and it's very authentic, very organic. So why don't we just get started at the beginning? Tell us about yourself, give us an introduction, and how you got started into being a parenting expert, if you will.
Okay. Well, can we ever be experts?
No, right. A specialist, right?
A survivor.
Yep. Support specialist.
Sometimes, right? Yeah. So, thank you. So I am living in Spain, like we said. And before this, I lived in South Korea. And I am a teacher. I've taught for the past 16 years, all ages from 5 through teenagers and adults, and mostly I work with adults now teaching. But over the time, seeing hundreds and hundreds of kids, you just kind of you make your mistakes and you help and you do the best you can. But when I realized that experience really came into play is when I became a parent, and I have 2 kids. Sophia and Dante, their age is 7 and he turns 5 next month. And they're both bilingual, and that's such a blessing to be able to provide for them and to support them with, and to see them learn and use 2 different languages from, working with both languages from birth.
Yeah.
And so I use my skills from language teaching and language studying to support them, to help them, and to learn myself as well. Yeah.
It is a learning experience being a parent. There's no doubt about it. And I think that the best teachers we can become is when we're open to learning as a parent, when we're open to giving up that mindset of what our parents did to us and how we can repay our children with the same respects or disrespects, and how we can curb that with taking our own time to create our own perspectives and our own practices in parenting,
Yes. And that's something really interesting what you just said. So we can take the things that happen to us, good and bad. Like, unfortunately, many times it's bad.
Yeah.
For many people. And there are 2 roads that you can go down, right? You can either repeat the same cycle, which that's the easy way. And I say easy, not because it creates an easy life, but that's our pattern of thinking. That's what we're used to. That's our paradigm. That's what we've, learned in many cases. Or we can take that and keep that idea. We've all thought this as kids. We're like, when I have kids, I'm never going to treat them like this. And then many times we do, my dad or your mom come out of our mouths sometimes and out of our gestures. And so we can either become aware of that and steer into it so that we can so that we can fix it and we can change that pattern, or we could avoid it, we could ignore it, we could run from it and try to hide it from ourselves, and then it'll come out. And that I choose the first one for myself as much as I can. It's always a learning process.
Absolutely. And, when we're in the process of learning, and it's so important that we give kind of dignity and respect to each child, teenager, adult, anybody we're working with, in that they all have different ways of learning. And that's something that maybe some parents or newer parents might not understand, is that their children, whether it's identical twins or, 1, 2, 5, 10 years apart, they're all going to have different ways of learning, and really honing in on how are they executing in the world, in their functions, how are they best learning from their environment. I think that's so key to look at those things to find the skills that you can help develop.
Yeah, that's so true. How many kids do you have?
I have 2.5. I have 3. I have a 23-year-old stepdaughter, and I've raised her since she was 5. So I put a lot of years into that. And then I have my own 2 that are 10 and 12 now. So a little bit older, but boy, did I learn a lot the first time around.
Yeah. And, you have 3, and that's so true. They all have their own ways of learning.
Yeah.
And that's so true. I asked you how many kids, because that became so evident to me when I had my second. From the womb, completely different.
Yeah.
From the womb, they were completely different. Their mother's craving were different.
Yeah.
Like the way she responded was different. Everything was different. And that's so eye-opening.
Yeah.
That's so fun to see if you allow yourself to see the fun in it.
Did you find out the genders? I didn't mean to cut you off there. I just thought that was interesting. Did you get a gender reveal prior to them being born? We didn't on both of ours. And we didn't on either of ours. We just made it a surprise by meeting them for the first time. But it was so interesting how exactly what you're saying. They were such different pregnancies. And I knew, because I was just like, I'm not usually this feisty or have this much gonna get you attitude like my husband. So I was like, this is a boy. This male energy is getting me. And then of course the female, I was just like over dramatic and over everything that I already am. So it's so interesting.
Funny.
Yeah.
That's so funny. That's awesome. Yeah. And did you find your cravings as well? Like food cravings were completely different?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. It's so interesting that I had both and was able to kind of see both up, from not knowing and kind of guessing and taking measures of all of those.
Yeah, that's awesome. That must have been fun in many ways.
Yeah, so, definitely.
Another thing I was going to say earlier with their learning style, their learning is different because they're different people, but also their way of expression is different. And that's something I think is very important to note too. And I feel it's so important to let children express themselves, in healthy ways, obviously. So I'm not saying gouge, someone's eye out.
Right, sure. But do it through a piece of paper, right? Punch a piece of paper if you get upset and get your anger out at something that can. Yeah, I heard that from a therapist once, to punch a hole through a piece of paper, a newspaper or something, because you can see the damage and you could feel it, but it's not really hurting anybody. So,
oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Love
that. Yeah, and jumping on sofas or whatever, maybe create rules around that. There are certain times to do it. There's certain whatever, but they each express themselves differently. And I think what I hear a lot of, from parents, because you hear how other parents communicate, and not to judge or whatever, but so-and-so is not like so-and-so. or you're not like your sister. Look at your sister, like, or look at your brother sitting there. And it's like, we all express ourselves differently. And so just like we all learn differently, we all express ourselves differently. We all learn at different paces. And I think that's important for parents to hear, because as we were talking about before we hit record, it's easy to feel like you're the only one. It's easy to feel like you're, as a parent, like, am I the only one that, am I doing, you always have guilt. You know, I hear a lot about mom guilt, but we get that too, like Absolutely. As fathers.
Yeah.
And I think that's important too for fathers to hear, that like, it's okay if you feel like weak, I guess, for lack of a better word. It doesn't mean you're weak, as a, you know, just the opposite, feeling vulnerable and let yourself be vulnerable. That's a sign of strength to me.
Agreed.
And so I think that's important for parents to know, like, you're not alone and you're not the only one.
It's so true. And, you know, sometimes you really go through peaks and valleys in your parenting journey where you find support. And, you know, I heard this advice from someone else the other day, and they were speaking more of their autism journey, but it can be related to just parenting in general. And that is to always have 3 types of friends. One is a friend who is right where you're at, same age as your child, where you can talk to them one-on-one as parents. You know, what do you feel like? This is, you know, our son is going through puberty right now. It's really hard to know how to help him. He's also has a hard time with communication. He is verbal, but he still is not communicative in the world at where he's at with autism. And so it's difficult to have those. And then another one is to have a friend who has a child older than your child. So you can say, what do I have to look forward to? What are some things I can keep in mind? How do I look for substance abuse or social media abuse? Or if something is, my child is straying in school, like, how do I keep those things in mind? And then someone who has a child younger than you, that you can mentor, that you can be that person to build that community. I thought, oh my gosh, that's beautiful advice. I'm sharing that for sure. It is so true, you know?
Yeah, that's a great application. I think that's a teaching of an ancient philosopher. I think it was Plato.
Oh, I love it.
Or Kant or something like that. Yeah. But about us, right? To have like someone, you know, at each stage. Yes. But that's a great application through parenting as well. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Absolutely. You're right. It's so hard, or so easy rather, sometimes to feel like isolated and alone, and like you're on an island of parenting, and you have guilt. And you know, this time without, you know, our first is 23. She's grown up. She's out of the house. We've done all the parenting we could have done, right? And a great analogy my husband came up with our kind of journey with our oldest daughter is parenting is like a bow and arrow, and we're the bow as the parents, and the children are the arrows. And it doesn't matter how long they're crafted or beautifully created or put all of this time and effort, anything can change the trajectory of the arrow once it's out of the bow's, you know, once it leaves. And we can't be in charge of that. We can't control that. We have to just accept where it's gone, you know, and kind of hopefully hope that we've created enough space and safety and for them to come back when they're older, you know, and everything. But in the same breath, we can't hold ourselves accountable for when our children leave and they make their own choices. Like, that's part of their life script and their learning processes. And that's when we have to try to learn to let go. And I guess that would be good for having someone out, you know, older than your kids. You're not worried about that yet, but I, you know, have already been encountering that. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big advantage that I felt ever since my daughter was first born. I felt like almost at an unfair advantage to other parents that I that were in our circle, because being a teacher for, over a decade at that point, I've had experiences with kids of all ages. Like I knew like the tantrum age is coming because I saw it firsthand, not because I like, you're terrible twos or whatever, which, that's almost like self-fulfilling prophecy. But like I knew each stage, and I knew kind of like what to expect. And I've had like firsthand of like dealing with it, because as a teacher you're with them and they kind of start to feel comfortable. So then they rebel or they whatever, fight with each other. So that's a great advantage to being a teacher.
Yeah. Oh, I suppose I can't imagine. I was a preschool teacher. That's as far as teaching as I ever got. It still gave me experience with little ones though, and how to calm them, how to, sing lullabies, how to read books to them, how to circle the little kitten craziness, like wild kittens in a room. But it does, all of those experiences like help. And, it's been 30 years since I've had to do anything like that. But which shouldn't date myself like that. But it's okay. The journey has been so fulfilling. And I've learned at this point, oh my gosh, I've taught myself so many tricks. And, there were bad habits that I had before, like yelling. I taught myself how to stop yelling. And
awesome.
It's a
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I mean, it's something, from childhood. So it's really those things that you decide deep down, like, I can't do this. And when I realized as my son was, 1 or 2, and he was developing much differently and had a lot more challenging milestones that I couldn't expect, or have this kind of like hurry and do things kind of attitude. And so I decided to, every time I was going to yell, I started to yell, I'm going to yell right now. And then after a little while, it started to sound pretty silly that I was yelling out, I'm going to yell right now. And I would catch myself, and I really just like, it started to click. And I mean, that's been a decade now that, that's happened. So much our environment is different, and just the communication style between everyone. And it wasn't ever anything that I had with my husband. We've always had a great respecting friendship relationship and love for each other. But for some reason, that parenting, from the parenting style of parenting, right, comes in, and you're like, oh, I can do this. I can control this little person. I can make things happen the way I want to. But wow, lots to learn on that front.
Yeah, it's that controlling another person. It's not as, you kind of learn that that's not the objective,
No, it's not even rewarding. Exactly.
No, yeah, exactly. Not even rewarding. That's great to say. Because and we all kind of like, you kind of have to learn that,
Yeah.
And I've learned that too, and I've overcome myself in many areas, seeing, my own mistakes, and not even seeing them for myself. Sometimes you have to be told them, how you act, because again, it's our subconscious behavior coming out.
Yeah.
And then you look at it, and then I think it's an important thing to apologize to your kids when that kind of thing comes out, and do what you can and say like, that won't happen again, and then make sure it doesn't happen again.
Right.
That's something that's very important to me, to keep my word. And when I tell them something's not going to happen again, that's almost, it's telling them, but it's also telling me, like, Jesse, now, like, you're saying it out loud. So I'm very calculated when I say those words, and I say that it's something that's not going to happen again. And I think it's important to do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's how they learn how to feel when mistakes are made. if we overreact, we make a big, huge deal. And it's not an easy process to like learn. It's hard and it's committed. You have to be committed to wanting to be a more patient, more fair, more understanding, a quieter parent, right? It's like a real commitment. But I see now with the relationship of our youngest child, who we have had the opportunity to reapply new parenting styles to and test out, bless their hearts, right? They're all guinea pigs. But
Yeah.
to really show that, okay, we understand that, like you said, letting her express herself. When she was 7, she's 10 now. She'll be 11 soon. So when she was 7 or 8, and I really want to dye my hair, and it's like, all right, well, there's this purple wash in and wash out stuff. Let's get it from the store. Do your hair, have a purple bath afterwards, have a great time, enjoy, get it out of your system. Because when you turn 18, I don't want you to immediately turn your hair purple because you never got the chance to do it. Because I want you to have other goals, other aspirations, other things, rather than having to try all the things you couldn't do when you were younger. Right.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I mean, with boundaries, like you said.
Boundaries. And then also with that, like, discover things about themselves, because maybe she realizes like she likes purple hair, and maybe that won't be like a lifestyle choice, but maybe that might lead her into like an artistic path,
Exactly.
and maybe like in the future there will be some hairstyles, but maybe that's a part of her artistic expression. And I think that's really important. It comes back to like what we were talking about, like that control, and it's just you're another human being,
Yeah. It's really tricky, isn't it? Because not to say that the past generations were doing the best that they could with the knowledge they had. And we're just so lucky in the era that we are in to be able to make different choices, be able to talk about making different choices, because that's important too. Just what we're doing now, other people might be afraid in their culture, in their whatever lifestyle they have, to be outspoken about things and say, I'm not going to do that. That doesn't seem right to me. Like, we're going to do things differently this time around.
Yeah. And like you said, even something like this, we are in a great time because there are resources like this. Like, we don't have to wait for, a giant media outlet to like, hopefully they will, present a series on parenting, right? There are podcasts, there are YouTube channels, there are Instagram pages full of, helpful advice and support that we can turn to and we can, reference. For example, I'm working with my kids on sign language. So just like in a casual way, and I'm learning it too, but there are Instagram channels that we go to that have those.
What are your favorites that you use for that?
There's a channel I really like called What's My Sign, or What's That Sign?
Yeah.
That's my go-to Instagram page, and now TikTok page. Yeah.
Wonderful. I know the Rachel Coleman, who is the founder and creator of Signing Times, which is a big one in America, at least. And it's exciting when your kids can learn to communicate in different ways. And I love that. After the show, I'm going to tell you all about my son and his interests in languages. He has a special interest in languages, if I didn't tell you already. So yeah, it's exciting.
That's awesome. Yeah. Tell me about it. Cause that's kind of what I do.
It's really cool. In fact, he, when he was 1 year old, well, I don't know if you guys ever saw, there were like these ads that they had for a program that would help your baby learn to read, called Your Baby Learn Your Baby Can Read program. That's what it was. Okay. And they were like DVDs and flashcards you could put your baby in front of, and it would do a series of phonics with the flashcards and the DVDs. And DJ was reading at 1 year old. We realized that he was really like tracking the words and doing, like, when it said clap your hands, he would clap his hands, and just he was reading. And then and then when he was 2, when he was 16 months, he was diagnosed with autism, because of his lack of eye contact. He hadn't made any sounds verbally yet. And by 16 months, there's a lot of babbling and small words that should have been in, typical milestones that should have taken place. So those things hadn't happened. And his pediatrician gave us a heads up. So we had him tested. But at 2 years old, we were just out doing chalk on the sidewalk, and he wrote purple turtle. And that was his first time writing words, full
before
words,
speaking.
Before speaking. And so he had learned, through signing times, through little Einsteins, things like that, some sign language so that we could communicate a little bit back and forth. And his sister is 2 years younger than him. So I was pregnant with her at the time. And he and I would write back and forth to communicate for the next 2 years until he was almost 4 years old. So it was amazing because I had this bridge that I could communicate with him. Otherwise, I don't know how else we would have made it through those time periods, of not being.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was amazing.
So he was 4 before he started speaking.
Yeah. Yep. He was about 3, almost 4. So he's 3.5-ish, a little over 3.5. But, and we recognized about 3 that he had a photographic memory. He would recreate things he'd seen in the world, street names or dresses, like fonts. He would recreate fonts that he'd seen, pictures and things at 3. So we really were like, whoa. And I dove deep and just was like, oh, well, here's a map of the United States. Here's our, state. Here's the countries of the world. And I started compiling all of this educational, things for him to start learning, curriculum. There you go. And it really set him on his path. And now he's 12 and he is currently studying 134 languages. And that is, as soon as Google Translate updates, he will update his own little brain. So that's where he gets his updates.
So, I was going to say that's a perfect chance to learn like Chinese, Arabic, Korean, things that have different characters.
Yeah, he learned, I think he was speaking about 4 or 5 languages by the age of 5. Once he started speaking, then he was just like, everything was
that's amazing.
And it wasn't communication that was clear and understanding. It was still autistic puzzle. Like I was a puzzle master. I had to figure out all of these terms or phrases that he would say, and he had echolalia, so he would be on repeat a lot of times and repeating phrases. And it's just definitely it's been an interesting journey on this parenting. These different minds.
So if I can ask, if I can be the host.
Yeah, please do. I love it.
So how did he learn? So he has a photographic memory, right? Yeah. But how did he learn so many languages? Was it through YouTube videos he searched and just found like YouTube videos in different languages? Like what was the method of learning?
I found a program called Rock and Learn. And unfortunately, the founder is like a 75-year-old man now, and he doesn't create them anymore. But I have reached out to him because he changed our lives, literally. But DJ learned, I would say, preschool through eighth grade before the age of 5 through these DVDs. They were education with music. It was rock music, rap, country, all different styles of music. It's like rap out multiplication, which what a better way to learn multiplication than to rap
kind of like
about it.
Schoolhouse Rock.
Yeah, kind of the same style of that. The whole thing was learning how to, place commas, learning how to use apostrophes, like really specific rules of English. And so I guess that was where he learned that. But it then, as I saw how much he was getting out of it, I started finding more and more of these DVDs. And then I found the ones that taught Chinese, Mandarin, Italian, French, German. And so, English. So those were the 5 that he learned when he was about 5. He was also doing algebra. His sister was in middle school at the time. And so he would take her textbooks and read and read and read. And so we got so lucky in his preschool into kindergarten that he had supportive, amazing teachers that loved him and that saw all of this incredible potential in this little brain. And that's one lady, particularly would do algebra with him. But then when we got into first grade, everything changed and the school became completely dangerous and unreliable. And we had to take him out of school. He eloped. He left school in first grade, 6 years old, and a teacher found him on the street. A parent rather in the neighborhood brought him back to the school, and so it was just like problems and problems after that.
Was there problems because within the school?
It was the school's lack of support, knowledge, I guess, at the time. I wish that they would have taken a better approach. I asked them to provide specific things for the level of education he was at, and they denied that. Now looking back, and even then, unfortunately, I do have a background as a paralegal, and I really could have taken them. I could have sued them, and but I'm also a mom, and I'm also don't want to go fight a school district and make enemies of my neighborhood teachers and all of these things. It's a tough road to know how to go down. So I found an incredible homeschool online program where they provided the curriculum and all of the study guides, books, everything, a computer. And we were able to double grade at a time, basically first and second or third and fourth, fifth and sixth. He is phased out of high school. And now I don't know how to move forward. I don't really understand post high school because he doesn't have a GED. He didn't graduate with a diploma. He's 12. And, he's just he's already done physics and calculus and quantum physics. And what do we do? How do we now he gets all of his information on YouTube. Unfortunately, I don't have as much. It really is. But at the same time, he is still 12 and he's still a boy and he still has autism, which then you see that he does he on his little channel posts a lot about the alphabet. He loves the alphabet. Everything alphabet for his whole life will probably be the safest thing in the world, right? And yeah, so it's been interesting.
So that's really cool. There are so many great homeschool programs now. When I was little and young, homeschoolers were, kind of
like hippies or something.
Non-social.
Yeah.
Religious. Mostly it was for religious reasons. But now there are really strong homeschool programs and then communities around that. So that's fantastic. And I guess something I would just recommend as far as the next step, because you don't want to like lose this momentum.
Yeah.
If it does interest him to move on with his education, just ask around in universities. I'm sure you'd find one that would be able to take, that would be willing and able and excited to take on a prodigy.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. He really is. And it's a lot of fun. Like, he has taught us so many things. His mind is just beyond what I could ever, anyone I've ever met in my entire life. In fact, I reached out to Elon Musk at some point and I was like, look, we have got to talk, because now I know you have Asperger's and my son is, this mathematical, linguistic, we've got to get together. So I think it's funny that now we can try to connect. Yeah, I didn't ever hear back from someone. And if anybody has a connection,
keep at it. I mean, exactly. He seems like he's a little bit busy, but keep at it. Keep tweeting or keep, because especially if he can relate, if he catches wind of it, and then he can relate to something like that. Because that's another thing I was just going to mention, is if you don't want to go down the university route, find some sort of mentor, to work with him.
Absolutely.
Because university isn't the only.
That has been such a positive thing. In fact, we did once find a microbiology student, and he came and tutored him in microbiology when he was, like 8 or 9. And he was so excited because he was just like, are you kidding me? I'm like doing this with this kid. So it's really fun and exciting. And, and I get so wrapped up. My son does so many amazing things, and he has, his own challenges still. But, my daughter, on the other hand, is like we always joked when they were little, like, he's a mathlete and she's the athlete. She's like perfect at everything she does, is over perfection all the time. And, just is really great with in arts, and has a beautiful singing voice, and just all of these talents that she doesn't have the social challenges that he has, but she also has so many of the unique skills that she possesses on her own. And isn't it so exciting when we see our kids skill levels, and we really give them their own kind of challenges to build themselves up on those types of things.
Yes,
definitely. Yes. What do your kids like to do?
They my daughter, she's the artistic one, absolutely. And I don't mean like among the kids, I mean among everybody. Like, she draws ever since she was like 2 years old. She was drawing better than me. And that's not saying a whole lot, but I mean, for 2 years old, like, she would follow. We used to like watching this YouTube channel called, we called it Pause the Video. It's not Pause the Video. It's a for kids. And we call it Pause the Video because they always say in all the videos, and if we go too fast, you can always, what can they do? Pause the video and draw at your own pace and then catch up. And so we call it Pause the Video, but it's Art Hub for kids. And it's just like they teach how to draw like princesses or cartoon characters or like cupcakes with eyes, like things like that. And she just took a shine to that. And my son is the athlete. He's, strong, he's fast. And they both love something I love. I actually posted this on TikTok. I learned so much by watching them play on the monkey bars. So it's like because it's measurable, right? They can always go one more rung and then, I can't make that one. That one's a little farther away. And just, they never give up. They fall down and then want to go back and like climb again. And then want to come back the next day and like, well, we can't today because we have school or whatever. We'll come back Friday or Saturday. and they always look forward to it. They always want to come because it's that next challenge.
Yeah.
And then the excitement they have when they reach the end, and then Sophia being older, she can do more, but that just pushes Dante, like, if she can do it, I can do it.
Oh yeah. I love that.
And he does, because he's the more athletic one. And it's just cool to see. And she's such a great big sister. And the way they encourage each other, it's such a blessing to see. It's so cool. They also fight, so not to paint it all sunshine and rainbows, but
hey, it's got to be a balance, right?
You have to. Yeah, and that's another thing with parenting, to go back to that, to understand, if you grew up with brothers or sisters. Yeah, awesome. So, if we have brothers or sisters, I have 2 sisters, we used to fight. We used to not get along, right? And I think that's part of it. That
I'm an only child,
to go with the
Jesse.
parents, what's that?
I'm an only child, so I have no way to judge what that should look like. So for me, this is a whole new experience, having brother and sister together. Yeah.
Look at you. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. Did you have cousins? Did you have friends that fought with their brothers and sisters?
I mean, a little bit, I guess, but I also had divorced parents and I moved around a lot. So I think that it was more of a solo journey than anything else. I always wished I had. And when I had, children, and I was so happy that they had one another for their whole lives now, that was my only wish, so it was kind of like fulfilling it for them.
It's funny, when I was younger, I always
tell me about yours. Yeah,
I always wanted, and when I was younger, it sounds funny, but I always kind of wanted an older brother who would pick on me.
Yeah.
Is that weird? That's weird.
I don't think so. Probably not. Maybe, you needed somebody to give you the extra push or something, right? And
yeah.
That's funny.
So, but yeah, your kids fight, and that's another thing. You don't have to break up every fight. Let them sort it out. Let them figure it out sometimes, right? And I think parents, they put too much pressure on themselves to, make everything perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect, and it's not going to be perfect. And kind of like with this, with the podcast, with the cloud, and with the, like you said, with your dogs, and the other show with the kids coming in, sometimes the imperfection, that's where the beauty lies a lot of the time.
Isn't that the truth? And without it, we wouldn't be able to see and appreciate all of the things that go right when all of the things go wrong. Isn't that the truth too? Just like you can appreciate your good weather since we have snow, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll hopefully appreciate the sun shining in my face, whether it's cold on the ground or not. So yeah, your perspective is where you need to make sure that you're always testing yourself and setting your own good measures for your mindset. What's some advice that you find you give to parents most often? Absolutely.
Show love and grace to yourself. That's, I think, the number one thing that people need to, and whether parents or not, but especially parents, because you have other people depending on you, that I hear a lot that, I don't have time to think about myself. All of my thinking goes to my kids. And I kind of want to say, I don't say this to them, but I can say this to them indirectly here. By doing that, you're not giving attention to your kids. You're not giving 100% to your kids, because you can't. We can only give out of what we have. Like Wayne Dyer, modern day philosopher and spiritual teacher, said, he teaches that, or he taught that if I can only give you oranges if I have oranges. I can only give you love if I have love for myself. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like if I were to tell parents one thing, like show love to yourself, because by doing everything just for your kids, you're not, as counterintuitive as that sounds, putting them first doesn't put them first. It's like when we, are on an airplane and the gas mask or the oxygen mask come down, we're told to put ours on first and then put our kids on.
Yeah.
And that's for a reason. That's for like a very specific reason. And it's the same thing with our time, with our energy. Like, when was the last time you've done something for yourself? Like go get a massage or go for a walk in the park, or, leave the kids with, their friends. And instead of going on Instagram, or instead of going shopping, or instead of like picking up the dry cleaning or whatever chores that you have to do, errands you have to run. When was the last time you put that off and said, that can wait until tomorrow? I'm going out to the woods and sitting on a bench. That will serve you much more than picking up the dry cleaning and, worrying about all the things that you have to do. That stuff will get done. But your mental health and emotional health, that might not. Yeah. That won't improve by itself.
Yeah. Plus, what a great example you're being for your kids and showing them the importance of self-help or self-care by caring for yourself and letting them see, no, mom or dad need some time right now. We're going to, be doing this. Here's this activity for you to do instead, or, good luck finding a book to read or, or something, or tell us about that later. But really setting that example, because they're watching and they see all, and that's where they're learning all of it as well. So always be aware of the example that you're providing.
Always, right? I love this saying that I share with others, and I got it from an entrepreneur teacher called Ed Milet. And with kids, things are caught more than they're taught. And I love that, to keep that in mind as much as I can.
Isn't that true? Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. What a fantastic conversation. We really did a good job talking this up today. We're going to have you back on. It looks like we could talk about a lot of more things. So
I'd love to. Yeah, the time just flew by.
Yeah, it did. It's been a wonderful conversation. Where can people find you if they want to connect or follow you?
Yes. So I can say I don't make it easy. So, and not intentionally, just the way, how we should always have all of our social media is the same name.
Oh.
Except like I don't. So on Facebook, where we connected, Jesse James Sweed, and on Instagram, Jesse_Sweed. And then I just started on TikTok, Jesse Sweed. Okay. And so that's where.
I love that. Make sure you go and support all of his pages. Follow him everywhere. Wonderful advice. And I'm so happy that we connected like this.
I am too. This was amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. And we'll definitely be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you.